The Iron Hands are a faction that I think gets forgotten about, much like their Primarch. Mainly because that's kind of what happens when your Primarch is casualty number 1 in the big Civil War event. But I think it's a disservice. The Iron Hands are genuinely interesting. It's just they're underused or used weirdly in a lot of times. Which it does seem like Games Workshop is kind of addressing this, as recently they've gotten some little updates. Though, I will say, if you have anything in the tabletop scene, you certainly have not forgotten the Iron Hands exist, because, Jesus Christ, the Iron Hands meta lists back in the day? Good lord, that sounds like a nightmare. I'm glad I didn't play that edition. But like I said, the Iron Hands are interesting because it's the story of a legion having to learn without the guidance of their Primarch, which goes horribly real fast. But originally, during the Unification Wars, the Iron Hands were known as the Stormwalkers, which these guys, also interesting enough, they're one of the legions we know where they're sourced from, because they came from a location known as Old Albia, or with a little bit of digging, the British Isles. Which means that the Iron Hands, whenever you look at them, picture a bunch of British hooligans, which makes me surprised that they like bolters and heavy firepower so much instead of all just using combat knives. But really quickly, they got some recognition because they are so fucking effective. They immediately proved themselves in grand warfare, while a lot of other legions are really good at like hit and run tactics, spearhead formations, just rapid drop assault, stuff like that. The Iron Hands are perfect in your big ass battle lines with all your forward gunners, your artillery sections, your heavy armor squads, grand warfare. They did really, really well for themselves. And this all got turned up to 11 when they actually found Ferrus Manus, because Ferrus Manus also preferred this method of warfare. So this is what he really taught his men to do. Honestly, a good way to picture the Iron Hands is just picture like the Death Guard. Slow moving, very tanky, very defensive, except the Iron Hands use more tanks and shower. And of course, this would get kind of fucked up real quick because Ferrus Manus died. Just gonna skip his whole backstory right here. Gonna pick up right during the Dropside Massacre, where he dies and the Iron Hands Legion collapses. It is real fucking bad, real quick, because now they don't know what to do. This is legitimately unprecedented. Primarchs would later die. In the Horus Heresy, we have some more casualties, but this is like the first. So everyone was kind of just lost. And they fully shattered and kind of started up their own little factions. Just real quick, running through like a few, we got like the group that was following Shadrach Medusan, who decided to lead guerrilla warfare against traitor forces. We have Arak Mor, who said guerrilla warfare is for pussies, and he just straight up full-on sieged traitor worlds. We also have the Cult of the Gorgon, who believed that they could revive Ferrus Manus, and they even one time claimed that they did. In reality, they made a weird robot puppet thing with Ferrus's actual hands. This thing would later be destroyed by Vulcan because no the fuck you're not doing that. You also have the Council of Medusa, which is filled with like the people who were exiled from the main like military group out in space by Ferrus Manus for just kind of fucking up or disappointing him. They were all on Medusa when he died, so they kind of tried to form a governing council. And as well, the Council of Medusa started doing some extra funky stuff because Ferrus Manus had a cool vault locked with the keys of hell, as he called them, that had a bunch of really scary Dark Age technology. Stuff he forbade being used, which the Council of Medusa immediately went to use. We have like little tidbits of the stuff they used. Really, we have one that created techno raids, where you could revive dead Iron Warriors in like this weird zombified state, where they kind of had their memories and their like personality to an extent, but it kind of went downhill the more you did it. It also was mega techno heresy, like not allowed at all. Super fucked up that they even tried to do this. And then lastly, some of the other things that happened were like, some just straight up left the Legion, where either they straight up shacked up with like Horus and the traitors, or they became Black Shield Space Marines, which is essentially like mercenary Space Marines, they kind of forego their chapter or legion and kind of go around doing whatever. But eventually, they would get their shit together. The Council of Medusa would thankfully stop using that forbidden Dark Age tech and did something known as the Tempering, where a lot of the people came together on Medusa and talked it out and tried to figure out what to do. I was about to be wrong on the internet, so here's editing glue boy. So the Iron Hands have what is known as the Iron Council, where instead of having the typical chapter master and how the rest of the chapters and legions organize themselves, they instead have 41 Iron Fathers that all sit on this council, elect a chapter master to be the master of the council, and make their decisions from there. And as well, the chapter master can actually be revoked at any time. Currently, it is Cardan Stronos, this dude. And another kind of fun thing is a pretty key member of the council is actually the voice of Mars, who is directly representing the Mechanicum and all of their interests. And as well, they also talked about their general feelings about the Horus Heresy. It kind of realized, all of them, humanity is the blame. The fact that humans are humans is the reason the heresy happened. Therefore, emotions and flesh is weak, which immediately got them into their current mechanical fun state, which also really pleased the Mechanicus. Now, the Iron Hands long since had a really good relationship with the Mechanicus, because on Gorgon, they were actually had a really similar upbringing. The whole story of like Mars and the rise of the Cult Mechanicum and the story of Medusa are very similar. So they immediately got together, and also the fact that, you know, the Iron Hands used a lot of the shit that the Mechanicus directly sent to them. They were like their best customers. It was fantastic. So of course, they really promoted when they started being like, yeah, get rid of all these weird fleshy bits. And it really quickly got to the point where, say for example, Iron Hands are delighted when they get injured on the battlefield. If you cut off an Iron Hand's hand, he is elated because now he gets a cool robot hand. Fuck yeah. The more you get injured on the battlefield, the more you can replace your parts. To the point where other Mechanicus members have seen this, where there are beings of metal and flesh on the battlefield that are only exist to murder the enemy, so much that like their humanity is gone. Like another thing that's like mega techno heresy, not allowed, but the Iron Hands do it because all they really care about is murdering the enemies of mankind, eliminating weakness in themselves and in the Imperium. And as well, they have this exact same feeling about dreadnoughts. Now, when a Space Marine is mega injured, they get interred into a coffin on legs with big old guns. They're so injured that they're never going to actually recover, so their last bit of glory is even in death they can serve. Now, an Iron Hand being placed in a dreadnought is the fucking dream. Fuck yeah, I'm gonna be like in a weird flesh coffin and then everything else is metal. I am now a robot. This is fantastic. Now, there's a funny little thing that happens when you are best friends with the Mechanicus. The Mechanicus are tricky little fuckers who do just a little bit of trolling, just a little bit, where they decided, yeah, we got the Iron Hands on our side. What if we forge documents and tricked them? So they are fully lying to the Iron Hands with these things called the Canticles of Travel, where it is like aligned with Ferrus Manus's writing. In reality, they revised a bunch of old Earth documents to where now the teachings of the Iron Hands are just so happen to be perfectly aligned with the Mechanicus's goals and wishes, where they're fully stringing them along, carrot on a stick. That carrot is a cool new robot eye, and every Iron Hand's just following it, doing whatever they ask. It is really interesting. I wonder if that's ever going to blow up in their face at some point, where the Iron Hands learn they're being manipulated and have been manipulated for thousands of years. That sounds like a really cool story, actually. And then lastly, the final bit, this is really cool. I really like this element of the Iron Hands. They have their own method of warfare now, other than just, grand warfare, big machines, all that. They specifically have a calculus of battle, where they straight up diffuse everything into logic and numbers, because their whole new thing too is emotion is weak. That is the human part of you. The flesh is weak, so are emotions. The Mechanicum is the exact same way. So they literally break down all elements of battle into raw numbers, where they straight up just do equations. They math out the entire situation to where pretty fucking accurately can predict what the enemy is going to do and plan accordingly. Now, there's one very funny part of this battle calculus. There's one part that is not equated for in any of the equations or algorithms, nothing. Civilians. There is no tactical care for what the civilians are doing in the general area. So the Iron Hands are yet another chapter alongside like the Grey Knights, where them coming to help you and save your planet isn't really the saving that it really is. But that's kind of the long and short of it. I think there's some other little characters you can talk about when it comes to the Iron Hands. Autek Moore is a character where I can definitely see making a video on him soon. He is pretty fucking cool. I just need to read the actual Iron Hand stories that take place during the Horus Heresy, and then I'll go from there. And yeah, they're not that complicated. They like the big machines, they like their tech, and done deal. And they're also horrifying on the tabletop when they're good. Genuinely, everything I have read about how the old Iron Hand meta lists operate sound like the least fun shit to play against. I'm glad you Iron Hands fans, all 5 of you, had fun with that list though while it was available. But anyways, it's gonna wrap it up. So if you like this, like, comment, subscribe, do that stuff. Join my membership, and see ya.